All right, welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube, Twitter, and everywhere in between and answer them here in video format. A lot of questions came in, so I'm going to try to answer a good amount of them today. But we have a lot to get through as the Deshaun Watson suspension came down, some other things, joint practice, just a busy week for Browns fans, as busy as the offseason can be. And we're just going to jump right into it with this first question. It's from Ian, who says, do you believe Anthony Schwartz will find a way to put things together and be a serviceable wide receiver, or do you think he will be a lost cause and the Browns should cut their losses? The room is not deep enough to justify cutting Anthony Schwartz, so I'm not on that train yet. What I will say is he don't got much time to make a lot of improvement, right? Like, he has to make a leap within this next year, because if he gets to the third year of that contract, who knows what they do to try to upgrade that room next offseason. It could become slim pickings for him, right? But in the second year, I think he'll be fine. He's not like in danger of being cut or anything like that. But he's running out of opportunities to make an impression on folks, more so than what he did to get drafted. So I will say clock's ticking on him. And given what I've seen so far, I would not be overly confident in him making a huge jump. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with Schwartz. William Zinn with this question says, thoughts on Brissett not getting much preseason time. Now, this has been overshadowed by the whole Watson saga that Jacoby Brissett's not really playing much in the preseason. And this happened last year, right? I don't think Baker Mayfield played a single preseason snap until the start of the third preseason game last year. I mean, he looked fine in that third preseason game last year, and you can argue that Baker looked fine up until the labrum injury, even though I think he was a little shaky in that Texans game before he threw that interception to Anthony Schwartz. But nonetheless, this is a thing with Kevin Stefanski, right? Now, the difference between camp this year and last year is that this year he had the joint practices, and maybe that plus the third preseason game gets the Browns prepared enough to go into the season, and it doesn't matter how much preseason time is Jacoby Brissett is getting. So think of it like this, and this is how I think the Browns are thinking of it internally, is in terms of game day reps to get Jacoby Brissett ready, they feel like they're giving him the equivalent of 2 preseason games by starting him during the joint practices and by giving him that third preseason game. He'll probably get a couple of drives just like Baker did last year, and then he'll be on his way, and then there'll be Dobbs and Rosen for the rest of the way in that preseason game. But, yeah, I think that's the thinking there. Will that work out? Who knows? Who knows, right? The Browns' problems last year weren't because they didn't play many games in the preseason with the starting quarterback. It was more or less the quality of play from the starting quarterback for whatever reason. Again, we want to blame it on. Trey Ball with the question here says, given all the conspiracies around J.C. Tretter and the NFLPA and rumors of Coach Stefanski not liking him, I don't think that's true. I don't think it's specifically Coach Stefanski, but it is a thing about all coaches. So I'll correct that before I continue. Do you think any of this they can put aside to re-sign him and give him a lost starter in depth in the week? I don't know if the question is about if the Browns want J.C. Tretter as much as, and again, I'm speculating here. I have no inside sources on this. I don't want anybody to think I have inside sources and act like this is a report. This is not. I try to look at things from both sides here. From the Browns side, it makes a lot of sense to bring in J.C. Tretter. I don't know why they wouldn't. But if I'm J.C. Tretter, I'm much, much more apprehensive about playing for the Cleveland Browns than I would be in the other direction. And here's why. J.C. is still the president of the NFL Players Association. The NFL Players Association spent a good amount of its players' money, its base's money, which is the players, on defending Deshaun Watson and getting a settlement for Deshaun Watson. I think it would be a terrible look for the NFLPA president to then be on the same team that the dude that you spent a good amount of everybody's money defending, and you benefit from it as the president. he green-lighted a lot of these funds. This Deshaun Watson defense from the NFLPA was not cheap. And it's something that we as fans don't really have any incentive to care about because, like, nobody's rooting. Well, nobody's like an NFLPA stan, right? But if you're a player, this is incredibly important because, again, you get charged fees from the NFLPA. A lot of people watch over how the NFLPA spends that money, and just spending this amount of money on a controversial figure and defending him in the Deshaun Watson, even though it is what the NFLPA is literally designed to do, is going to be a controversial thing amongst the NFLPA member base. Since that is the case, right, because some people in the NFLPA might not feel great about spending that much money to defend somebody they don't think might be the greatest person on and off the field. Some people will be able to see the union reasons on why you do it, but some people won't. And it would look equally bad if JC Tretter then benefits from that as a player by being on the team in which Deshaun Watson gets to play for and literally snapping him the ball. It would be a terrible look, not publicly. I don't think publicly PR-wise people are going to care or the general fan is going to care, but the players in the NFLPA will absolutely care. And that will not look good to a certain segment of them, which I don't think JC Tretter is interested in that nightmare of it from his perspective, right? I think we've looked at this from the team's perspective. I don't think we've looked at this from JC's perspective. And I don't think I don't know if this makes sense for him. I really don't, from his perspective. And I 100% respect why it would not make sense to him. So I think, I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm saying let's give that some thought when we talk about JC Tretter coming back to the Browns. When we talk about the possibility of it. The next question comes from Matt, who says, "Hey Q, I'm getting tired of the lost season talk and the Jimmy G conversation. I get why people want him, but I don't think he makes a notable difference outside of his winning pedigree. But doesn't feel like a good idea to get Jimmy when it's not a full season. Do you feel the same?" Oh yeah, y'all know how I feel about Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is the answer there, right? I don't think your fortunes change much. And also, here's the thing I don't get when it comes to the people who want Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, Jacoby Brissett's going to play as a starter this year. Because if you get Jimmy Garoppolo, even if you get him now, he's not going to be ready to start week one. And that would require you getting an asset for him, right? So let's say the Browns get him close to that 53-man cut down, right? After everybody's cut, that's like 2 days into week one. He's not playing week one. So you're going to start Jacoby Brissett. And I would think it probably takes 4 to 6 weeks to get him up to snuff and ready, given that Jimmy Garoppolo has not really practiced at all this offseason, given that he just came off a shoulder surgery on his throwing arm. He is not just plug-and-play guy. He did not end the season healthy. He ended the season with surgery on his throwing shoulder. He's not going to be ready the week you sign him. That's why a lot of teams are hesitant to bring him in, especially as late as it's gotten in camp. And now you're in a situation, if you're the Cleveland Browns, where you're probably going to start Jacoby Brissett for 6 games, at least, because that was what you were originally 100% comfortable with. Then you might bring Jimmy G in for 5. And then if you do that and Watson does come back after 11 games, which he should, then were you going to cut Jimmy G or trade him in week 9? This doesn't make sense for anybody involved. This is not a good situation for Jimmy Garoppolo. This is not a good situation for the Cleveland Browns to not just transfer from one starting quarterback to another one in Jacoby to Deshaun Watson, but to go from Jacoby Brissett to spending a lot of time and resources in practice, which you don't really have during the season, to get Jimmy Garoppolo ready while Jacoby Brissett is actively playing. I don't know how you manage that. And then go from Jimmy Garoppolo to Deshaun Watson. Oh, by the way, you probably have to cut one of the other, and it's probably going to be Jimmy G. So you waste a bunch of money. It makes no sense to me. It's Jacoby. At this point, it makes fiscal sense. It makes football sense. Jacoby has been taking snaps with this team since like March. It's probably going to be Jacoby. I get why people want Jimmy Garoppolo from an emotional standpoint, from a logical standpoint. It makes no sense, and I don't even think it makes the team better. But, that's just my opinion on that. Trent with the next question says, Do you think opposing defenses will stack the box against Jacoby similar to how they did with Baker while Deshaun is out? Part of me thinks since Amari and Jacoby are so timing oriented that teams might have to respect the pass a bit more than we think. That, and also I want people to consider the fact that, like, when it comes to Jacoby and teams stacking the box, a lot of that's not dictated on. Well, a lot of teams don't really do their defensive personnels like that. Like, are some teams going to stack the box on Jacoby Brissett? Absolutely. Do the Browns have counters for that? Absolutely. They better. But also, some teams just don't stack the box, right? Some teams, like the Chargers, for example, would rather have you run the ball. So they're not going to encourage you to throw the ball by stacking the box. They are going to give you 6-man boxes. They are going to give you 5-man boxes because that's what they want you to do. A lot of teams, especially the more analytics-heavy teams, would prefer for the Cleveland Browns, as crazy as it sounds, to run the football. So you're not going to see that many stacked boxes because of that, especially since that's the direction the league's moving in. And you're playing a lot of coaches who think that way this year. So I don't think the boxes are going to be stacked. If they are, it's going to be stacked. But that's why you run a lot of play action. That's why you run, that's why the Browns run a lot of 11 and sometimes even 12 personnel where they're going to go. Well, they don't run a lot of 11. They run a lot of 12 and 13. But yeah, that's why you're going to see some of that this year. So I don't know I think this is one of those things where it makes sense from one perspective, but I don't know if that's necessarily how coaching staffs think about it, because I think a lot of coaching staffs just don't want to stack the box anymore because they want to encourage you to to throw the ball, to run the ball, because they feel like it's much less efficient. Next question comes from Demetric Felton, who says, Browns have to be, Demetric Felton, it's not from Demetric Felton. It's from Chilro, who says, do you think Demetric Felton has the potential to be a good or average wide receiver at his size? I don't think Demetric Felton's role in the NFL will be one where his position is what he actually does. I think Demetric Felton, who has great potential in the NFL, it reminds me of like a Percy Harvin kind of a deal, right? A Percy Harvin, what's now considered a Deebo Samuel, right? Where he's at his best, he will be even Travis Benjamin, somebody fits in that role, right? But at his best, I think he's a guy who should return kicks and punts if he gets better at it. Do some end arounds, run the ball a little bit. He's a slash player. That's what I would say. That's an old school term. I would call Demetric Felton a slash player. He's going to be multiple different position groups, multiple different spots if he wants to have a long NFL career, because he definitely has the talent to do it. It's just about, can he execute and do it in games? I think he can. I think he can. I think he's going to be somebody who could surprise some people. Had a real strong start to last year. Maybe he puts it together in his second year, but he's a slash guy, I would say. Next question comes from Teenager, who says, hey, Quincy, now that Watson has an 11-game suspension and Clowney is staying because of Watson, do you feel he'll stay another year? I think Clowney's availability next year for the Cleveland Browns will matter will be more about whether Alex Wright develops or not to a comfortable level, whether the Browns pursue him again next year, more so than if Jadeveon wants to come back. The next question comes from Jim, who says, how many losses would it take for you to be concerned about the rest of the season this year? I've already said, in the first 11 games, you need at least 5 wins, right? 5 wins and you're still in it. 6 and you feel okay. 7 and you in heaven, right? That's the range, 5 to 7. If you get anything under that, this becomes about Deshaun checking off the rust for next year and you salvaging whatever you can. If you get more than that, hey, let's ride. You know what I mean? But other than that, that's really the range I would go with. And I don't think anything is a lost season. Again, I hate that term, lost season. There is no such thing as a lost season, no matter how pathetic your football team is, because you gained something out of it. But it's not a lost season from the perspective of what you guys are saying what a lost season would be. Because again, if you're able to get Deshaun Watson to be Deshaun Watson by next year, it would have been worth it to have him play those 6 games. There's no lost season, I think, in this, even if the Browns are terrible this year. Photo Project says, what's up, QC? Are we back to the Ray Farmer I don't need wide receiver days? Crazy question, but I will answer this question with a question. And then I'll answer that question. The Browns offensive coordinator in the Ray Farmer days, Kyle Shanahan. The Browns now run a Shanahan-style offense. Those two things aren't a coincidence. Those two things aren't a coincidence, right? The fact that the Browns are kind of like not caring about wide receivers as much. And then, well, you know, they run the same system. This system doesn't value wide receivers that much is what I'm saying. But that's it for this week's Q&A. Thank you guys for asking. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.